David sat in his office on the 42nd floor, staring at his phone like it was about to explode. Another message from his mom. He didn't even need to open it to know what it said. She'd been at this for months now, ever since his divorce became final 2 years ago. Just one more chance, sweetheart. This girl is different. I promise. He'd heard that line 17 times before. 17 awkward dinners where women showed up with perfectly styled hair and designer handbags, asking about his company within the first 10 minutes. 17 evenings where he felt more like a resume than a person. 17 times he'd gone home feeling emptier than when he'd left. David wasn't always this cynical. There was a time when he believed in love, in connection, in all those things people write songs about. But his marriage had beaten that optimism out of him slowly, like water wearing down stone. His ex-wife had loved his wallet more than she'd ever loved him. When the divorce papers were signed, she got the beach house and half his stocks. He got trust issues and a deep exhaustion with the whole concept of romance. His assistant knocked on the glass door. "Mr. Chen, just a reminder about your dinner meeting tonight at 7. David almost laughed. Dinner meeting. That's what they were calling it now. His mom had gotten creative, roping his assistant into the conspiracy. He should have been angry, but mostly he just felt tired. Tired of disappointing his mother. Tired of disappointing himself. He looked at his reflection in the dark computer screen, 38 years old, running a tech company worth hundreds of millions. And he couldn't figure out something as basic as human connection. The irony wasn't lost on him. His phone buzzed again. This time it was his best friend from college, Wei. "Dude, just go. Your mom won't stop until you do. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? You waste an hour of your life? You've sat through longer board meetings. Wei had a point." David typed back quickly. "Fine, but I'm leaving after 5 minutes. Emergency phone call." "You know the drill." 3 dots appeared as Wei typed his response. "You said that last time and stayed for 2 hours. That's because she wouldn't stop talking about her Instagram followers." "I was trapped. Whatever you say, man. Have fun." David set his phone down and rubbed his eyes. 5 minutes. He could do 5 minutes of polite conversation. He'd smile, ask a few generic questions, check his watch, and then his phone would ring. Wei would call right on time. David would apologize profusely, explain there was a crisis with a client in Tokyo, and disappear into the night. Clean and simple. He grabbed his jacket and headed out, ignoring the curious looks from his employees. They weren't used to seeing him leave before 8 or 9 at night. Work had become his escape, the one place where things made sense. Code either worked or it didn't. Problems had solutions. People were the messy, unpredictable part of life that he'd learned to avoid. The restaurant his mother had chosen was one of those places with mood lighting and small portions that cost more than most people's car payments. David had been here dozens of times for business dinners. The staff knew him by name. As he walked in, the hostess smiled warmly. "Good evening, Mr. Chen. Your table is ready." Of course it was. His mother had probably called ahead 3 times to make sure everything was perfect. She meant well. He knew that. After his father died 5 years ago, she'd thrown herself into taking care of David, convinced that finding him a good wife would somehow complete the picture of the life she'd always imagined for him. He sat down at the table tucked in the corner, exactly where he'd expected to be. Corner tables were better for quick exits. He ordered a whiskey, neat, and checked his watch. 6:55. The blind date was supposed to arrive at 7. He gave it 50-50 odds she'd actually show up on time. While he waited, his mind wandered back to his marriage. Rachel had been beautiful, ambitious, and completely wrong for him. He'd been too young and too in love to see it. She'd liked the idea of being married to a successful entrepreneur more than she'd liked him. Toward the end, they'd barely spoken. They'd just existed in the same expensive house, living separate lives, pretending everything was fine for the sake of appearances. The divorce had been brutal, but necessary. Like ripping off a bandage that had been stuck to a wound for too long. It hurt like hell, but at least now he could breathe. His phone showed 7 o'clock, then 7:05, then 7:10. David felt a familiar mix of relief and annoyance. Relief because he wouldn't have to go through with this charade. Annoyance because he'd put on a suit and driven across town for nothing. He was about to signal for the check when someone rushed through the front door of the restaurant. She was a mess. That was his first thought. Not mean-spirited, just observational. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail that had partially come undone. She wore bright blue scrubs with cartoon characters on them. There was what looked like a juice stain on her sleeve. She was clutching a purse that had seen better days, and she was breathing hard like she'd been running. She spotted him, and her face transformed into a mix of relief and horror. "Oh, thank God you're still here," she said, rushing over to the table. "I'm so sorry. I know I'm late. I know I look ridiculous. There was this situation at work and I couldn't just leave and I didn't have time to go home and change and I'm sorry." David found himself standing up automatically, his business manners kicking in despite his surprise. "It's okay. Please sit down." She collapsed into the chair across from him, still trying to catch her breath. "I'm Lisa. You must be David. Your mom talks about you constantly. I work with her at the community center on Saturdays." Of course, the community center. His mom volunteered there every weekend, teaching English to new immigrants. David donated money to the place but had never actually visited. Too busy. Always too busy. "I'm a pediatric nurse," Lisa continued, still slightly out of breath, "at Children's Memorial. We had this kid today, his name is Timmy, and he's 7 and he was absolutely terrified of getting his IV. Like screaming, crying, the whole thing, and none of us could calm him down." She paused to take a sip of water from the glass the waiter had brought over. David noticed her hands were shaking slightly. Nervous, he thought. She's nervous. "So anyway," Lisa went on, "I remembered that Timmy had been talking about dinosaurs earlier. He's obsessed with them. Wants to be a paleontologist when he grows up. So I did my T-Rex impression." David blinked. "Your what?" "My T-Rex impression." She held her hands up like tiny dinosaur arms and made a ridiculous growling noise. Right there in the fancy restaurant, several nearby diners turned to look. Lisa didn't seem to notice or care. "It's pretty bad, I know. But Timmy thought it was hilarious. He stopped crying long enough for us to get the IV in. Then his mom wanted to take pictures with me. And then I had to do the Velociraptor too, which is totally different, by the way. Different vocal quality." She demonstrated again, and David felt something crack inside his chest. Something that had been frozen solid for 2 years. He was laughing. Actually laughing. Not the polite chuckle he used in business meetings. Real laughter. "I can't believe I just did that," Lisa said, covering her face with her hands. "This is a disaster. I'm a disaster. You probably think I'm completely insane." "No," David said, and he was surprised to find he meant it. "I think you're really good at your job." Lisa peeked at him through her fingers. "Really? Really? That kid was lucky to have you." She lowered her hands and David saw her smile for the first time. It was genuine, reaching all the way to her eyes. No calculation behind it, no agenda. Just happiness at being told she'd done something good. The waiter appeared, professional and patient. Lisa grabbed the menu and opened it, her eyes widening at the prices. David saw her pause, saw the little calculation happening in her head. "What would you recommend?" she asked the waiter directly. "What's your favorite thing here?" The waiter looked surprised. People didn't usually ask him questions like that. "Honestly, ma'am, I love the angel hair pasta with marinara. It's simple, but the chef makes the sauce from scratch every day. It's not on the special menu, but we can make it if you'd like." "That sounds perfect," Lisa said warmly. "I'll have that. And thank you for the recommendation." After the waiter left, she looked at David sheepishly. "Hospital cafeteria food is pretty terrible. Everything tastes amazing when you're not eating reheated meatloaf." David ordered the same thing, not even looking at the menu. He'd forgotten about his 5-minute escape plan. He'd forgotten about Way's scheduled phone call. He'd forgotten about everything except the woman sitting across from him in dinosaur scrubs. "So," Lisa said, fidgeting with her napkin, "your mom says you work with computers? That's cool. I can barely figure out the electronic health record system at the hospital." She didn't know. David realized with a start that she had no idea who he was. His mother hadn't told her about the company, the money, any of it. She thought he was just some guy who worked in tech. For the first time in years, someone was looking at him without dollar signs in their eyes. "Yeah," he said carefully. "I run a software company. That's nice. Do you like it?" No one ever asked him that. They asked how much money he made, how many employees he had, whether he'd ever met Steve Jobs. But no one asked if he actually enjoyed it. "I used to," David admitted. "Lately it's been more stressful than fun." "What about you? Do you like nursing?" Lisa's whole face lit up. "I love it. I mean, it's hard. Really hard. Some days I come home and just cry because we lose patience or we can't help everyone who needs help. But the kids are so incredible. You know that Timmy I mentioned? He's been getting chemo for 6 months. 6 months. And he still wants to talk about dinosaurs and draw pictures and tell jokes. Kids are so resilient. They teach me more than I teach them. She talked for 20 minutes straight about her patients, about the teenage girl who wrote poetry during treatments, about the 5-year-old who was convinced his IV pole was a robot friend, about the baby in the NICU who finally went home after 3 months. Her passion was contagious. David found himself leaning forward, completely absorbed. When the food arrived, Lisa took a bite and actually closed her eyes in appreciation. Oh my God, this is incredible. When was the last time you had something that just made you happy for no reason? David thought about it. Really thought about it. I honestly can't remember. That's sad, Lisa said simply. Not judgmental. Just honest. Life's too short to not have things that make you happy. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. David kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Lisa to start asking about his car or his house or his bank account. But she didn't. She just enjoyed her pasta and occasionally made little happy noises that made him want to smile. So your mom mentioned you were divorced, Lisa said carefully. I hope that's okay to bring up. She worries about you. It's fine. It was 2 years ago. I'm over it. Lisa tilted her head, studying him. Are you, though? The question caught him off guard. What do you mean? I mean, your mom says you work all the time and never go out and basically live at your office. That doesn't sound like someone who's moved on. That sounds like someone who's hiding. David felt defensive for a moment, then realized she was right. Maybe I am hiding. That's okay, Lisa said. Hiding's fine for a while. Sometimes we need to hide to heal. But you can't hide forever, you know? Eventually you have to come back out. What about you? David asked, turning the tables. My mom said you've been single for 3 years. By choice, Lisa said firmly. I was in a relationship that wasn't right. He was a good guy, but he wanted me to give up nursing. Said it was too stressful, too demanding. Wanted me to do something easier. But nursing isn't just my job. It's who I am. So I chose me. David found himself respecting that immensely. Good for you. Thanks. Honestly, I'm happy. I have my work. I volunteer at the homeless shelter on weekends. I have great friends. I don't need a relationship to be complete. But your mom was so persistent about meeting you that I finally agreed just to get her to stop asking. David laughed. She's like that. Once she gets an idea in her head, there's no stopping her. They talked through dessert, which neither of them had planned to order, but the waiter suggested, and Lisa's eyes lit up at the mention of chocolate lava cake. They talked through coffee. They talked until the restaurant started clearing out and the staff began giving them gentle hints that maybe it was time to go. David checked his watch and was shocked to see it was almost 11. 4 hours. They'd been talking for 4 hours. His phone showed 6 missed calls from Wei and 3 increasingly concerned text messages. As they walked out to the parking lot, Lisa turned to him. Thank you for tonight. I know blind dates are awkward, but this was actually really nice. It was, David agreed. And he meant it. For the first time in 2 years, he'd spent an evening with a woman and felt like a person instead of a paycheck. Would you maybe want to do this again sometime? The question came out before he could stop it. Lisa smiled. I'd like that. But fair warning, I work crazy hours. And I might show up in scrubs again. I don't mind scrubs, David said, especially ones with dinosaurs on them. She laughed, and the sound made something warm spread through his chest. Hope. He was feeling hope. He'd forgotten what that felt like. As he drove home that night, David thought about his 5-minute plan, about how he'd been ready to walk out before Lisa even arrived, about how close he'd come to missing this. His phone rang. Wei. Dude, I called you 6 times. I thought you died. Sorry, David said. I forgot. You forgot? You forgot the emergency exit call? What happened? David smiled at the road ahead. I think I just met someone real. Oh no. You're smiling, aren't you? I can hear it in your voice. Maybe. After one date. David, come on. Remember what you said? 5 minutes and done? I know what I said. David turned onto his street, his mind already planning when he could see Lisa again. But 5 minutes turned into 5 hours, and Wei, I want 5 more. 3 days passed before David texted Lisa, not because he didn't want to reach out sooner, but because he'd typed and deleted at least 40 different messages. Everything sounded wrong. Too casual. Too formal. Too desperate. Too cold. Finally, at 2 in the morning on Wednesday, when he couldn't sleep and was lying in bed staring at his phone like a teenager, he just typed the truth. "Hey, I can't stop thinking about the dinosaur impression. Dinner again soon?" Her response came back within minutes. "Thought you'd never ask. Fair warning though, I work until 9 p.m. most nights this week. Late dinner, okay?" "Perfect. I'm usually at the office until then anyway." Wow. We're both workaholics. This should be interesting. They met at a small diner, Lisa suggested, the kind of place with red vinyl booths and a laminated menu that had probably looked the same since 1985. It was the complete opposite of the fancy restaurant from their first date. David loved it immediately. Lisa was already there when he arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a cup of coffee. She'd changed out of her scrubs this time, wearing jeans and a simple sweater. Her hair was down, falling in loose waves around her shoulders. She looked tired but happy. "Long day?" David asked, sliding into the seat across from her. 12-hour shift, she said, wrapping her hands around her coffee mug. "But good. We had a little boy get his final scan results today. Clear. No more cancer." His mom literally collapsed in the hallway crying. "Best moment of my entire week." David found himself smiling at her enthusiasm. "That's incredible." "It really is. Those moments make all the hard stuff worth it." She pushed a menu toward him. "Order anything. The portions here are huge and everything's delicious. Plus, Denise works Wednesday nights." "Who's Denise?" "Our waitress. She's putting her daughter through college. Works 3 jobs. Toughest woman I know." As if on cue, a woman in her 50s appeared at their table, order pad ready. "Lisa, good to see you, honey. How's your mama doing?" "She's good, Denise. Sending her love." "How's Ashley doing at school?" They chatted for a few minutes about Denise's daughter's chemistry class and her new roommate. David watched Lisa engage with the waitress like they were old friends. When Denise finally took their orders and left, he shook his head in amazement. "Do you know everyone in this city?" Lisa laughed. "No, but I try to know the people I see regularly. Life's too short to treat people like they're invisible, you know?" Denise serves me coffee. That's a service. She deserves to be seen. It was such a simple philosophy, but David realized he'd been treating people as invisible for years. His assistant, his driver, the security guard in his building. He knew their job functions, but not their names, not their lives. "You're making me realize I've been a terrible person," he said. "You're not terrible. You're just busy. There's a difference. But yeah, maybe slow down a little." She grinned at him over her coffee cup. "So tell me something real about yourself." "Not work stuff. Real stuff." David thought about it. When was the last time someone asked him about himself? Really asked? "I used to paint," he said finally. "Before the company got big. Watercolors mostly, landscapes. I wasn't very good, but I loved it." "When did you stop?" "About 5 years ago." "No time. That's sad," Lisa said, the same way she'd said it at their first dinner. Honest, but not judgmental. "You should start again." "Maybe." "No, seriously. Life's too short to give up things that make you happy. That's like my whole philosophy. Do the things that light you up inside. Everything else is just noise." Over the next 2 weeks, they fell into a pattern. David started leaving his office at 8:30 instead of midnight. They'd meet at random places Lisa chose. A taco truck near the hospital. A 24-hour breakfast place. A tiny Thai restaurant tucked in a strip mall. Never anywhere expensive. Never anywhere fancy. David found himself looking forward to these evenings more than anything else in his life. Lisa had this way of making everything feel like an adventure. She'd tell him stories about her patients, about the kid who wanted to be an astronaut despite having leukemia, about the teenager who wrote poems during chemo that made Lisa cry in the supply closet. "You really love what you do," David said one night as they sat on swings in an empty playground at 11 p.m., sharing a box of donuts Lisa had insisted they buy from a late-night bakery. "I do. I mean, it breaks my heart sometimes. We lose kids. That's the reality. But the ones we save, the families we help, the comfort we provide even when we can't cure. It matters. It all matters." David pushed his swing gently, watching her in the dim streetlight. "You're like an actual good person. I didn't think people like you existed anymore." Lisa threw a piece of donut at him. "Stop, I'm not some saint. I'm selfish too. I do this work because it makes me feel good. Because I need to feel like I'm making a difference." That's not selfless. That's self-preservation. Disagree. But okay. What about you? Do you love what you do? David stopped swinging. It was a question he'd been avoiding even in his own head. I used to, when it was just me and two friends in a garage building something we believed in. It was exciting. Now it's just meetings and investors and quarterly reports. I'm managing people. I don't even code anymore. So why do you keep doing it? Because I'm good at it. Because people depend on me. Because I built this thing and I can't just walk away. Lisa looked at him with those steady eyes. Can't or won't? What's the difference? Everything. She stood up from her swing. Come on. I want to show you something. They walked 6 blocks to a neighborhood David had never visited, even though he'd lived in the city for 15 years. The streets were rougher here. More broken windows. More chain-link fences. Lisa led him to a community center, the same one where she volunteered with his mother. It's closed, David said, looking at the dark building. I know, but look, she pointed through the window. Even in the darkness, he could see children's artwork covering the walls. Paintings and drawings and colorful handprints. Every Saturday, kids from the neighborhood come here for art class. Free art class. Your mom helps run it. David stared at the window. His mom had mentioned the art classes a few times, but he'd never really listened. Always too busy. These kids don't have much, Lisa continued. But for 2 hours every Saturday, they get to create something beautiful. They get to imagine a world bigger than these streets. That's what your mom gives them. That's what matters. She turned to look at him. I'm not saying you should quit your job and become an art teacher. I'm just saying maybe think about what you're building. Is it just a company? Or is it something that actually helps people? Doreen, David didn't have an answer. That night, lying in bed, he thought about those children's paintings in the dark community center. About Lisa's patience. About all the ways people helped each other that had nothing to do with profit margins or stock prices. The next evening, Lisa called him instead of texting. Her voice was tight, stressed. Hey, I'm sorry, but I need to cancel tonight. Something came up at work. Everything okay? Yeah, no, I don't know. One of my patients, Alex, he's 14 and he's been doing so well. But he just took a turn and I need to stay with him. His parents are here, but they're scared and I need to be here. Of course. Do what you need to do. Thank you for understanding. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Text me when you can. She didn't text. Not that night or the next day. David tried not to worry, but he found himself checking his phone constantly. Finally, at noon the following day, his phone rang. Hey. Lisa's voice sounded exhausted. Sorry I disappeared. Is Alex okay? There was a long pause. No, we lost him this morning. David's chest tightened. Lisa, I'm so sorry. I stayed all night with his family. His mom asked me to, and I couldn't say no. He was so young. He had his whole life ahead of him. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. I'm not usually this much of a mess. Occupational hazard. Where are you? Hospital parking garage. I finally finished my shift. I'm just sitting in my car. Can't make myself drive yet. Stay there. I'm coming to get you. David, you don't have to. I know. Stay there. He made it to the hospital in 15 minutes, probably breaking several traffic laws. He found Lisa sitting in her beat-up Honda, still in her scrubs. Mascara streaked down her face. She looked completely drained. David opened the passenger door and got in beside her. He didn't say anything. Just sat there. After a moment, Lisa leaned her head on his shoulder and started crying. Really crying. The kind of crying that comes from deep inside, from holding too much pain for too long. He wrapped his arm around her and let her cry. Didn't tell her it would be okay or that she needed to be strong. Just held her. I hate this part, she said eventually, her voice muffled against his jacket. I love my job, but I hate this part. Watching kids suffer. Losing them. Having to tell myself that we did everything we could when it doesn't feel like enough. You were there for him, David said quietly. You were there for his family. That matters, does it? Yes. They sat in that parking garage for over an hour. Lisa talked about Alex, about his love of video games and terrible jokes, about how brave he'd been through everything. She cried and then apologized for crying and then cried more when David told her to stop apologizing. Eventually, she lifted her head from his shoulder. I look like a nightmare, don't I? You look like someone who cares too much in a world that doesn't care enough. Lisa laughed, but it was watery. That's a very nice way of saying I look terrible. Come on. I'm taking you home. I can drive. I know you can. But you don't have to. Not today. He drove her to her apartment, a small place in a not great neighborhood. She didn't invite him up and he didn't expect her to. But before she got out of the car, she turned to him. Thank you. For coming. For not trying to fix it or make it better. Just for being here. Anytime, David said. And he meant it. Over the next week, something shifted between them. They texted constantly. Good morning messages and funny patient stories and random observations about the world. David found himself telling her things he'd never told anyone. About his divorce, about feeling like he'd built a successful life that felt completely empty. About his father's death and how he'd thrown himself into work because it was easier than dealing with grief. Lisa shared too. About growing up poor in a different country. About her mom who cleaned houses to put Lisa through nursing school. About the guilt she felt for living far away when her family needed her. I send half my paycheck home every month, she admitted one night over cheap Chinese food. My mom says I don't have to, but she's getting older and the work is hard on her body. I'm trying to save enough to bring her here. Maybe buy a small house where we could both live. But at this rate, it'll take years. David wanted to offer to help. Wanted to write a check that would solve everything. But he sensed that would be wrong. That Lisa needed to do this herself. That her independence was important to her identity. You're a good daughter, he said instead. I'm trying to be. Some days I wonder if I'm doing enough. You're doing more than enough. Trust me. They went to a late-night movie the following Friday. Some action film neither of them had heard of. They sat in the back row and shared a bucket of popcorn. And halfway through the movie, David realized he hadn't been paying attention to the screen for 20 minutes. He'd been watching Lisa. The way she laughed at the dumb jokes, the way she'd lean forward during the intense scenes. When she caught him staring, she whispered, What? Nothing. Just thinking. About how I almost didn't show up to that first date. Lisa smiled in the darkness of the theater. Yeah, what changed your mind? My mom's guilt trips are very effective. She elbowed him lightly. Smooth. I'm glad I showed up. Me too. Their hands found each other in the darkness, fingers intertwining over the armrest. It was such a simple gesture, but David felt it everywhere. This wasn't like his marriage. This wasn't about appearances or expectations or what made sense on paper. This was real. This was someone who saw him, really saw him, and liked what she saw. Not his money or his success or his potential. Just him. After the movie, they walked to Lisa's car in the parking garage. Neither of them wanted the night to end. I should get home, Lisa said, but she wasn't moving toward her car. Early shift tomorrow. Right. Yeah. David wasn't moving either. They stood there in the fluorescent lights of the parking garage, and somehow it felt like the most romantic place in the world. Lisa looked up at him, and David saw his own feelings reflected in her eyes. This thing between them was real. It was scary and unexpected and completely different from anything he'd planned. But it was real. Can I kiss you? He asked. Lisa's smile was answer enough, but she said, yes, anyway. The kiss was gentle and sweet and tasted like movie theater popcorn. When they pulled apart, Lisa was grinning. That took you long enough. I wanted to make sure. Sure of what? That this wasn't just me. That you felt it too. Lisa took his hand. I feel it. I felt it since you didn't run away when I did my T-Rex impression on our first date. That was a really good impression. It really wasn't. They laughed together in that parking garage, and David thought about all the fancy restaurants and expensive dates he'd been on that had meant nothing. And here he was in a concrete parking structure that smelled vaguely of gasoline, holding hands with a woman in scrubs and sneakers, feeling happier than he'd been in years. So, Lisa said, swinging their joined hands between them. What happens now? I don't know. I've never been good at this part. Me neither. We'll figure it out together? Together sounds perfect. David drove home that night with the radio turned up and the windows down despite the cold air. His phone buzzed with a text from Wei. Dude, your assistant says you've been leaving work early every day. Are you sick? David typed back with one hand, probably unsafe, but he didn't care. Not sick. The opposite of sick. I think I'm falling in love. After 3 weeks? David, this is insane. After they hung up, David felt guilty. He'd done this before during his marriage. Disappeared into the relationship and forgotten about the rest of his life. He didn't want to make that mistake again. When Lisa emerged from the shower in one of his t-shirts, Her hair wet and wavy, he told her about the conversation. Way's right, she said, settling next to him on the couch. You should spend time with your friends. I don't want to be the person who takes over your whole life. You're not. I just want to be with you all the time. That's sweet, but also not healthy. She poked him in the chest. We both need lives outside this relationship. Otherwise, what do we even have to talk about? Fine, but you're coming to dinner with Wei on Thursday. Nervous meeting the friends? Terrified, Lisa laughed. I promise to use my indoor voice and not do any dinosaur impressions. Where's the fun in that? Thursday dinner was at a Thai place Wei loved. David arrived early, which meant he had 10 minutes to sit there anxiously checking his phone and second-guessing everything. What if Wei didn't like Lisa? What if Lisa thought Wei was pretentious? What if this was a disaster? Lisa showed up 5 minutes late, slightly out of breath. Sorry, patient emergency. Had to stay late. She slid into the booth next to David and smiled across the table at Wei. You must be Wei. I've heard so much about you. All good things, I hope. Mostly. David mentioned you're a terrible influence. Wei grinned. The worst. I'm the one who convinced him to start his company instead of taking that boring corporate job. Then I should thank you. If he'd taken that job, he probably wouldn't have been miserable enough to show up to our blind date. They hit it off immediately. Wei asked Lisa about nursing, genuinely interested, not just making polite conversation. Lisa asked Wei about his work as a lawyer, laughed at his stories about ridiculous cases. When the food came, they all shared dishes family style and it felt easy. Natural. Halfway through dinner, Wei's phone rang. He glanced at it and his face went serious. I need to take this work thing. Be right back. He stepped outside and Lisa turned to David. I like him. He's good people. He is. We've been friends since college. He's the one who called me 6 times during our first date because I forgot about the emergency exit plan. Emergency exit plan? David felt his face heat up. I maybe had a plan to leave after 5 minutes. Wei was supposed to call with a fake emergency. Lisa's mouth dropped open. You were going to ditch me? In my defense, I'd been on 17 terrible blind dates before you. 5 minutes. You were giving me 5 minutes. And then you showed up in dinosaur scrubs doing T-Rex impressions and I forgot how to think. Lisa shook her head, but she was smiling. Lucky for you, I was running late. If I'd been on time, you might have bailed before I even arrived. Universe has timing, I guess. Wei came back to the table looking stressed. Sorry, guys. Client crisis. I need to head back to the office. Everything okay? David asked. Will be. Just needs attention now. Wei grabbed his jacket. Lisa, it was really great meeting you. David, call me this weekend? After Wei left, David and Lisa sat in the restaurant finishing their tea. Lisa was quiet, playing with her napkin. You okay? David asked. Yeah, just thinking about work, about timing, about how life can change in an instant. She looked at him. What we have, it's good, right? It's better than good. It's the best thing in my life, mine too. That scares me a little. Why? Because I've never felt this way about anyone, and I keep waiting for something to go wrong. For you to realize I'm just a broke nurse with a beat-up car and too much student debt. For the newness to wear off and you to see that I'm actually kind of boring. David reached across the table and took her hand. Lisa, you are the least boring person I've ever met. You make everything an adventure. Getting coffee is an adventure with you. You know the life story of every barista in a 10-mile radius. You stop to pet every dog. You cry at insurance commercials. That commercial was very emotional. My point is I'm not going anywhere. And you're not boring. You're extraordinary. Lisa squeezed his hand. Okay, but if you ever get bored of me, you have to tell me. Don't just stick around because you're too nice to break up with me. Deal, same goes for you. Please. You're stuck with me now. I've already figured out your coffee order and memorized your work schedule. You'll never escape. They left the restaurant hand in hand, walking slowly through the city streets even though it was cold. David realized that 3 months ago, he would have driven these streets without seeing them. Would have been on his phone the whole time, thinking about work, missing everything. Now he noticed things. The way streetlights reflected in puddles, the smell of bread from a late-night bakery, the sound of Lisa's laugh when he said something dumb. She'd changed him. Not by trying to change him, but just by being herself. By showing him that there was more to life than board meetings and profit margins. That happiness was found in small moments, not big achievements. His phone buzzed. His mom. Heard you brought Lisa to meet Wei. When do I get to have you both over for dinner? David showed the text to Lisa. My mom wants us to come for dinner. Meeting the mom? That's serious. You've already met her. At the community center. That's different. That was volunteer Lisa. This is girlfriend Lisa meeting boyfriend's mother. Completely different thing. So is that a yes or a no? Lisa smiled. It's a yes. But if she brings out baby pictures, I'm going to need details on every embarrassing moment. There are so many. Perfect. They walked another block in comfortable silence before Lisa spoke again. David, thank you. For what? For staying. That first night. For not leaving after 5 minutes like you planned. For giving us a chance. David stopped walking and turned to face her. Right there on the sidewalk with people passing by and car horns honking and the city being loud and chaotic around them. Lisa, staying was the easiest decision I ever made. Leaving would have been the worst mistake of my life. She kissed him there on the sidewalk, and David thought about all the things he'd thought mattered before he met her. The company valuations and the press coverage and the fancy cars. None of it meant anything compared to this. To standing on a random street corner with a woman who saw him, really saw him, and chose to stay anyway. Come on, Lisa said, pulling him forward. Walk me to my car. And tomorrow you're coming to the hospital to meet my work friends. Fair is fair. Will there be dinosaur impressions? Absolutely not. I have a professional reputation to maintain. Liar. Okay, maybe one T-Rex. For old time's sake. David laughed and let her pull him down the street toward her beat-up Honda and tomorrow's plans and all the days after that. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about the future in terms of business quarters and 5-year plans. He was thinking about it in terms of moments. Small, perfect moments strung together like lights on a string. And it all started with 5 minutes that turned into forever. The call came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. David was half asleep when his phone rang, and his first thought was that it was the office. Some crisis with the servers or a client emergency, but it was Lisa's number on the screen. Hello? His voice was rough with sleep. David. Lisa's voice was shaking. Small. Nothing like her usual confident tone. I'm so sorry to call this late. I didn't know who else to call. He was instantly awake, sitting up in bed. What's wrong? Are you okay? It's my mom. She had a stroke. A bad one. I just got the call from my brother. I need to go home. I need to go to Mexico right now, and I don't know what to do, and I'm sorry. I shouldn't have called you. Lisa, breathe. Where are you? My apartment. I'm trying to book a flight, but everything's so expensive, and I don't have enough in my account, and I'm panicking, and I'm coming over. Don't do anything. Just wait for me. David threw on clothes and was out the door in 5 minutes. He drove through empty streets, his mind racing. Lisa's mom. The woman who'd worked 3 jobs to put Lisa through nursing school. The woman Lisa sent half her paycheck to every month. The woman she talked about with such love and guilt. Guilty for being far away. Guilty for not being able to do more. Lisa's apartment building was dark except for one window on the 3rd floor. David took the stairs 2 at a time. He found her door unlocked, which worried him. She was sitting on her couch in her scrubs from work, still not changed, her phone in her hands. Her face was red and blotchy from crying. Hey, he said softly, closing the door behind him. She looked up and her face crumpled. I can't afford the flight. The earliest one I can find is $800, and I only have $400 in my checking account, and my credit cards are maxed out from last month when my car needed new brakes, and I don't know what to do. David sat next to her and pulled her into his arms. I'll pay for the flight. No, I can't let you do that. Lisa, your mom needs you. This isn't the time for pride. It's not pride, I don't want to owe you. I don't want this to become a thing where you're always rescuing me. It's not a rescue. It's what people do when they care about each other. They help. He pulled back to look at her face. If I needed help, you'd help me, right? Of course. Then let me help you, please. Lisa closed her eyes, and he could see the war happening inside her. The independence she'd fought so hard for versus the reality of her mother lying in a hospital bed thousands of miles away. Okay, she whispered, but I'm paying you back. Every cent. We'll figure it out later. Right now, let's get you home. David booked the flight on his phone while Lisa packed. The earliest flight was at 6 a.m., which gave them 2 hours. He helped her throw clothes into a suitcase, not really caring what made it in. Lisa moved like she was in a trance, grabbing random items, forgetting others. David found her passport, her phone charger, the things she'd need. I need to call the hospital, Lisa said suddenly. Tell them I can't come in for my shifts. I don't know how long I'll be gone. What if they fire me? I can't lose my job on top of everything else. They won't fire you. This is a family emergency, but I'll drive you to the airport and you can call them on the way. In the car, Lisa called her supervisor and explained the situation. David heard the woman's voice on the other end, warm and understanding, telling Lisa to take whatever time she needed. When Lisa hung up, she looked relieved but exhausted. She was really nice about it, Lisa said, staring out the window at the dark streets. I thought she'd be mad. You're a good nurse. They're not going to punish you for having a family emergency. My brother said she can't move her right side. Can't talk. Just lies there looking scared. Lisa's voice cracked. She's only 58. That's so young. She's supposed to have decades left. I was going to bring her here next year. I almost had enough saved. David reached over and took her hand. She's going to be okay. You don't know that. You're right. I don't, but she's tough. You've told me stories about her. She raised 3 kids on her own, worked herself to exhaustion to give you opportunities. She's a fighter. What if I get there and she doesn't recognize me? What if she's not the same person anymore? Then you'll deal with it. Because that's what you do. You show up for people even when it's hard. At the airport, David walked Lisa to security. She looked so small standing there with her hastily packed suitcase, wearing yesterday's scrubs because she'd forgotten to change. He hugged her tight. Call me when you land. Anytime, day or night. I don't care about the time difference, okay? And Lisa, your mom is lucky to have you. She nodded against his chest, and then she was gone, disappearing through security into the early morning crowd of travelers. David stood there until he couldn't see her anymore, then drove home through streets that were starting to fill with morning traffic. He couldn't focus at work. Kept checking his phone every 5 minutes. Finally, around noon, Lisa called. I'm here. Just got to the hospital. Her voice was hollow. David, she looks so small. She's always been this force of nature, and now she just looks small and scared. Are you okay? No, but I have to be. My brothers are falling apart, and someone needs to handle things. What do the doctors say? It was a massive stroke. She's stable, but the damage is significant. They're talking about long-term care, rehabilitation, maybe permanent disability. Lisa's voice dropped to a whisper. The medical bills are going to be insane. She doesn't have good insurance. I don't know how we're going to pay for this. David's mind was already calculating. The cost of stroke rehabilitation. Long-term care. The best specialist. He could handle it. Write a check and solve the whole problem. But he knew Lisa would hate that. One thing at a time, he said instead. Focus on being there for her. The rest we'll figure out. We? Yeah, we. You're not in this alone, Lisa. She was quiet for a moment. I don't know what I did to deserve you. You showed up in dinosaur scrubs and made me laugh. Everything else just followed. Over the next week, David and Lisa talked every day, sometimes multiple times a day. She told him about her mother's small improvements, how she'd squeezed Lisa's hand, how she'd managed to say a few words even if they were slurred, about the physical therapist who was cautiously optimistic, about her brothers who were trying to hold it together. She also told him about the bills, the staggering, overwhelming bills, how she'd maxed out another credit card, how her brothers were trying to help but they had families of their own, kids to support, how she was looking at her savings account, the money she'd been carefully putting away for years to buy a house, and realizing it would all have to go to medical expenses. I don't regret it, she said on one call. That money is just money. My mom is my mom. But David, I'm scared. What if it's not enough? What if we lose everything and she still doesn't get the care she needs? David had been doing research. He'd found the best stroke rehabilitation facility in Mexico, had spoken to specialists, had quietly arranged for consultations. But he needed to approach this carefully. Lisa's pride was a real thing, and he respected it even when he didn't fully understand it. Lisa, I've been thinking, what if I helped with the medical costs? Not as a gift, as a loan. You can pay me back whenever you're able to. No interest, no pressure, just let me help. The line went silent for so long he thought the call had dropped. Lisa, I don't know what to say. Say yes. Let me do this one thing. Your mom took care of you your whole life. Let me help you take care of her. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, I know. You'd really loan me that much money? Lisa, I'd give you that much money. But I know you wouldn't accept that. So yes, I'll loan it to you. Write up a contract if it makes you feel better. But please, let me help. He heard her crying softly on the other end. Why are you so good to me? Because you're the best thing that ever happened to me. And because your mom raised an incredible person. That's worth everything. Okay, yes, thank you. I don't have words for how much this means. You don't need words. Just focus on your mom. I'll handle the financial stuff. David made calls as soon as they hung up, arranged for the transfer of funds, set up accounts to handle the medical expenses, found the best doctors and made sure they'd see Lisa's mother. He worked from his home office at weird hours to match up with Mexico's time zone, handling business calls between making arrangements for Lisa's family. Way stopped by one evening and found David surrounded by medical bills and research papers about stroke recovery. Dude, what are you doing? Helping Lisa. By becoming a medical expert? By making sure her mom gets the best care possible? David rubbed his eyes. He hadn't slept much in days. Her mom worked 3 jobs to put Lisa through school, cleaned houses on her hands and knees, and now she's lying in a hospital bed unable to move half her body. It's not fair. Life's not fair, man. You know that? Yeah, but I can make this one thing less unfair. I have the money. Why not use it for something that actually matters? Wei sat down across from him. You're in love with her? Obviously. No, I mean really in love. The kind where you'd do anything for her. David thought about Lisa and Dinosaur Scrubs doing T-Rex impressions, about her crying in a parking garage after losing a patient, about her laugh and her kindness and the way she made everything better just by existing. Yeah, he said, I really am. 2 weeks after Lisa left, she called with better news. Her mother was improving. Slowly, painfully slowly, but improving. She could say more words, could move her fingers on her right hand, was starting to recognize people consistently. The new doctors David had found were making a difference. David, I don't know how to thank you for this. You don't have to thank me. I do. You've given my mom a chance. A real chance. The doctors here say she might even be able to walk again with enough therapy. Before they were talking about wheelchairs for the rest of her life. That's amazing, Lisa. I'm so happy for you. When can you come visit? I want you to meet her. Want her to meet the man who saved her life. I didn't save her life. The doctors did that and you made it possible. That's the same thing. She paused. I miss you so much. I know it's only been 2 weeks, but it feels like forever. I miss you too. I'll book a flight. This weekend? Really? You'd come here? Lisa, I'd go anywhere for you. David arrived in Mexico on Friday evening. Lisa picked him up at the airport and threw herself into his arms before he'd even cleared customs. She held him so tight he could barely breathe. You're really here, she said into his shoulder. I'm really here. She took him to the hospital where her mother was recovering. The room was small but clean, filled with flowers and cards. Lisa's mother was propped up in bed, her right side clearly weaker than her left, but her eyes were alert and warm. Lisa held her mother's good hand. Mama, this is David. David, this is my mom, Rosa. It's so nice to meet you, David said in his mediocre Spanish. Rosa smiled lopsidedly and squeezed Lisa's hand. She spoke slowly, the words difficult but understandable. Thank you. For my Lisa, for me, you're very welcome. Your daughter is special. You raised someone incredible. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Lisa and said something in rapid Spanish that David couldn't follow. Lisa's face turned red. What did she say? David asked. She says you're handsome and I should marry you before you get away. Lisa rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. Mama, we've only been dating for 4 months. Rosa said something else and Lisa laughed. She says when you know, you know. 4 months or 4 years doesn't matter. David felt his heart skip. He looked at Lisa, really looked at her, standing there in her mother's hospital room with her messy,